We are back on Inside Politics, looking back 100 years ago at the Dutchman's Bend train wreck, the deadliest train wreck in U.S. history that happened here in Nashville in July 1918. Denise, you've seen all the profound changes that happened in your lives and probably in the lives of all the people that were there that day, particularly both those who lost their lives, surely, and the families of those who lost lives as well. And does it strike you how sort of random all those things, a random event like that can make a difference, not only for people that were alive that day, but for people like you who weren't born until years later?
That's right. That's right. You don't know what's on the agenda for that day, but you turn the page and your life has changed dramatically for yourself and for your relatives and for the descendants later.
Betsy, you've had a series of events over the last few days to commemorate what happened 100 years ago. It took you a while to get people to understand what it was all about and remember it again. Have you been happy with the community response that you've gotten about it? You had quite a few people come to the dinner that was held on Friday night.
Absolutely. The response of the community has been amazing, and the demographic of the people who are interested in this story has really changed. A lot more young people are showing up, and people who aren't from Nashville. Lots and lots of people who have moved here who aren't from Nashville have showed up for some of these events because they're like me, you know, they're interested in their new community and its history.
If people want to get a copy of the book and learn more about this, where can they get your book?
Well, you can get it online at betsyAthorpe.com. And then it's also available locally at Parnassus Bookstore, the Belmead Plantation Gift Shop, I should say, and then Wendell Smith's restaurant on Charlotte sells it.
Denise, what made you come back here? You and a number of members of your family came back for this. It's been 100 years ago, long before you were born. Why bother coming all the way across the country for an event like this?
It's in honor of the grandfather that we never knew, and this historic event that he was part of.
David, what's the meaning of this for Nashville? It was interesting during that particular time that this occurred in 1912. The reservoir broke here. Nobody was killed, but there was quite a flood that happened on that. Just a few years before the Dutchman's Bend train wreck, we had a terrible fire in East Nashville. Again, not too many people killed, but a lot of property destroyed in East Nashville. Then this happened with the train wreck. And then the influenza epidemic was going on not only in Nashville, but across the country. Did people in Nashville feel a little snake bit about that time? And there were a lot of natural and man-made disasters going on here.
We had the worst flood in 1925, Christmas Day, and then, of course, the big tornado in East Nashville on 31. So we did have a period of time with just horrific accidents. But just like they did in 2010, people came together. One of the newspapers said that whites were trying to help identify the people that were African American who were badly dismembered, their bodies, and they said the color line disappeared that day.
So it was like the Jim Crow laws were kind of put aside or repealed for that day?
That people were, and Joyce Flores sent flowers to the graves of all the African American graves that day too.
Denise, you find that some people find that interesting that Jim Crow was such a big deal here, but you can perfectly understand why people would have done that regardless of what the color of the skin were to help the injured.
I think generally that's the goodness of people. You see someone in trouble, someone injured or has passed away, and you help regardless of their color.
Betsy, you've been working on this now for over 10 years when the marker went up and the other things. Do you feel some closure with this now? I'm sure there's more things you'll probably continue to try to research about this, but I think you did this book, you said, because the spirits of the people that were killed spoke to you and wanted you to tell their story.
I know that sounds crazy, but yeah, I just felt compelled to name their names. And then on the 100th anniversary, when we met on the White Bridge with Mayor Briley and people recited the names, Denise with her grandfather, and other people recited the names. Even the unknowns were individually named as unknown, so that everyone had a calling 100 years later, that they were there, that they died together that day. And I felt like the story had come full circle. You heard a recording of a song that was done some years ago that included the voices of some of the survivors of that. Do those voices still speak to you today? Yes, Bobby Braddock wrote a song, and he gave me, he based it on some interviews that he did in the 70s with some people who were still alive, obviously. People who were had survived the train wreck. And the really interesting thing about their voices was each of them had like a unique tone to their voice, a unique accent, you know, that was directly related to, you know, where they grew up. And just to hear those voices tell this story, it was amazing. And he shared those with me just before the 100th anniversary.
Betsy, thank you for all you've done for this particular issue, and thank you for being on the show. Denise, thank you for coming home from California. Good to make connection with the Nolans from California.
My pleasure.
Glad for our families to stay together. And David, thank you so much for coming as well. This is one of the more interesting things in Nashville history. I guess to some degree was kind of hidden, David, but I guess now this will sort of be the final bringing together of the communities, with the mayor being there for the event and things like that. And reading, it's the kind of thing that didn't happen completely at the time, because some services for people that were victims were well attended, others were not.
Right. And some we just really never found their remains properly.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons there was some question, right, Betsy, about the about what happened, how many people were killed. There were death notices issued for people that were unidentified, and then later they were able to be identified, but they issued extra death notices, so that made the
I believe that's
look
what
higher.
I believe that's what happened. Yes.
And some people see 121 people.
And there were some people that were just so.
It was horrific. I mean, some death certificates just said 3 African-American women, 5 African-American men. They just couldn't identify them.
They couldn't separate them.
Again, thank you all for joining us, and it was a great celebration.
Thank you, Pat.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the NewsChannel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.